All right, here we go.
Well, meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has given Hamas until Sunday evening to respond to his peace proposal for Gaza. Qatar, Egypt and Turkey are in talks with Hamas leaders trying to get them to agree, but the staunch support of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan for the militant Islamists has long been a major source of tension with Israel. Relations between Turkey and Israel have worsened over the war in Gaza, and some experts are warning that Israel could even try to hit Hamas targets in Turkey. Our correspondent Julia Hahn reports now from Istanbul.
Jesus.
A message of support for the Palestinians. It's a sentiment that's strong and solid, not only here in Istanbul, but across Turkey. Israel's war in Gaza has claimed...
If you support Hamas, like, I'm sorry, bro, like, you can't talk about terrorists in Palestine. Like, this is an actor, a state terror actor, really. If it's like a Turkish state backing of the Hamas terror organization, it's no different than Iran, really. I mean, I'm sure they'd agree with them more than Israel with the Ayatollah. But anyways.
Over 65,000 lives so far, and expanded to include strikes and offensives in other countries. Some wonder whether Turkey could be next.
Of course, Israel is a risk factor. How?
I don't think Israel would directly strike Turkey because of the escalation that could cause inside of NATO as well, and the divide between America and, like, honestly, they don't want direct hostilities, even if it's, like, inevitable, right? But they might plan something like the Patriot attack. If it gets bad, maybe some kind of Mossad operation.
Could it not be? It's a risk factor for us, and they are just waiting for a pretext to attack.
If they attack us, they will get their just punishment. I don't think they'll strike. I don't think they have the courage to do so.
The mood on the streets echoes recent warnings by Turkish President Erdogan.
We are telling the world Israel's aggression is now an absolute threat that must be stopped for our region.
Threat to terror. And it's like really only the terrorists are threatened by Israel.
Israel's attack on a meeting of Hamas officials in Qatar last month put
And we have to remember, like, Qatar literally sheltered and gave safe passage to the terror masterminds behind 9/11. They literally let them evade the international authorities at the time while they were planning the attack and carried it out, and they only just tried to, you know, pawn off some jet to Trump to make up for that. I think it's just ridiculous to think of them as like anything but at least a terror sponsoring state.
On high alert. The operation killed 6 people and is widely seen as having crossed a line, as Qatar is a close US ally and a mediator for Gaza ceasefire talks.
Turkey is highly concerned. For Ankara, I think Israeli strikes, not just in Qatar, but also in Syria, Lebanon, Iran, Yemen, are not isolated tactical events, but I would say they are part of a broader Israeli strategy to establish a fragmented buffer zone of weak and pacified states around it.
Since the massacre of October 7, 2023, Israel has hit targets in several other countries in Turkey's neighborhood. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has repeatedly vowed to destroy the militant Palestinian Hamas wherever it exists.
And I say to Qatar and all nations...
And that's fair, like, if you're sheltering terrorists, you shouldn't be surprised when violence comes to the... Like, you're literally sheltering extremists. I mean, it's just crazy to think.
You either expel them or you bring them to justice. Because if you don't, we will.
Netanyahu's recent apology to 100%. Qatar, prompted by US President Trump, will have done little to quieten Turkish concerns, especially since Erdogan is a staunch supporter of Hamas. Their officials have regularly visited Turkey, and some senior members are believed to live here.
But
would Israel consider attacking targets in Turkey? It's a regional heavyweight boasting NATO's second-largest military.
Yeah, Turkey's like a threat to NATO more than Russia.
Strike, like the one in Qatar, is unlikely.
Like, honestly, if you think about it, like, they have so many armaments. They don't have nukes, but they have the largest conventional force, or the second largest in NATO, obviously behind America. So it's just crazy to think that we're trusting them when they're, like, in bed with our enemies and they're pretty much at the throats of our allies half the time. I mean, it's like they're pretty much allied with our enemies like Iran. You got like Russia, and Erdogan's a dictator. I mean, he was like, you had this pro-democracy protest because he literally secured power in his country through force. So he's a dictator. You have that down. He's also like a warmonger. And you have these people, he's basically a fascist dictator because he's trying to like go and impose their like their interests on foreign countries. They're basically trying to like, they have like a soft power influence, but they also have a more like insidious form of like nationalism where they're hoping to colonize and expand and recreate the Ottoman Empire, more or less, which is crazy, but I just don't trust them at all. The Turks are just obviously eaten with dogmatism, and they're trying to reform an empire that was destroyed in World War One. And it's, you know, it's not something that, they're also like a radical Muslim state as well. Like the Erdogan's taken Turkey back in time a lot with the radicalism, obviously sheltering terrorists and supporting them like Hamas, but also like they're just like, he's made, like Turkey was a lot more westernized before Erdogan, and he's basically turning them into more of a fundamentalist Islam state. So it's going to be more of an Islamist, extremist, terror-backing state like Iran. And that's just the likely outcome here. That's just Erdogan's rhetoric.
Generally want to go after the remaining Hamas leaders, and there's not a whole lot of them after 2 years of fighting against Hamas. I guess it has different options of doing that rather than dropping bombs from airplanes in different countries.
What could be a potential point of escalation? Targeted killings on Turkish soil. So an attempt by Mossad to hit against Hamas leaders sheltered in Turkey, and that's, I think, the most likely scenario.
Even so, Turkey is boosting its defenses as Israel attacked Iran's nuclear facilities.
I certainly wouldn't put it past them. I mean, at this point, it's not like Turkey doesn't have it coming.
June, Erdogan announced an increase in missile production, and he recently inaugurated Turkey's Steel Dome integrated air defense system.
Turkey is taking
precautionary
measures to, accelerate its endogenous air defense and aerospace programs to come up to a standard when, if one day it has to face Israel in the battlefield, that it will have a stronger front line.
And I think until now, both countries are trying to avoid direct confrontation between them, and it's good that this is the case. I hope it will continue.
Here in Istanbul, most people tell us they do not want to see another escalation. They want the war in Gaza to end. And
well, Turkey's the one escalating with their rhetoric. I mean, if you think about it, because Erdogan gets up there and calls Israel like a terrorist state. You know, it's not a sustainable dialogue, and they don't even have a dialogue between them. I mean, he said they won't have relations until the war ends. Now the war is ending, but the rhetoric hasn't.
Palestinians and Turks to live in peace.
Anyways, that was DW. Let's give her a sec here. We're just going to watch another clip.
Kamali. I'm speaking to you from the Prime Minister's office in Jerusalem. I can tell.
So it seems Israel's approved the Trump Gaza plan, and they've officially backed it here. And so this is just another step in the process of reclaiming Gaza.
You that there was a profound sense of shock in this country at that awful attempt, at that awful terrorist attack, and also the fact that unfortunately the Jewish worshippers were hit by police gunfire as well. That was also pretty shocking. But
yeah, that's terrible what happened in the UK in Manchester. It's incredible that this was allowed to happen, and that this will be touched on more in the future, I feel like. But I just want to say, it's like the terrorists allegedly felt backed by the media, the BBC, the state-sponsored media and propaganda outlets, and the government of the UK itself, due to their propaganda and their incessant anti-Semitism. But, you know, that's a factor. That was definitely a factor in the shooting, stabbing, car ramming in Manchester.
Ultimately, the shock goes only up to a certain point, because these were attacks that Jews around the world, not least in the UK, expected. They are the result of the rhetoric of the government, And unfortunately,
yeah, and that's another thing that's coming out now is like the amount of rhetoric that contributed to this violence and to these anti-Semitic attacks is just through the roof. And it's crazy. It really does directly contribute to these incidents against the Jewish people. And these were just worshipers trying to go to a synagogue. They were just trying to go and have their holy day and pray and live their faith. And they're confronted by someone who's so hateful and like just so hateful and intolerant. And you're talking about people that are just trying to worship their God, and this is their holy day. And they're always trying to attack on the holy days and turn them against the Jewish people. It's just crazy. It's always sad that you have to expect something like that.
whether the government like it or not in the UK, the terrorists went to do the act thinking...
And it doesn't, yeah, and this is a fact, it doesn't necessarily mean the government, you know, handheld him to this point. Obviously, they called this an act of terror. But it's just at a certain point, the dialogue and rhetoric is just unsustained. It's ridiculous to think that it doesn't contribute directly. The things that the news media, mainstream media, BBC are saying and have been saying, the fact that they've been calling out Israel as a genocidal state as well, it's no different than Turkey, and they really are an anti-Semitic state, but
that they had the backing of the British government. Whether the government's intention was that or not, the terrorist did the act thinking he had the backing of the British government. He also probably thought that he had the backing of the BBC. He probably thought he had the backing of Sky News as well, because of this excessive demonization of Israel, which you guys have been engaged in for the last 2 years.
All it's ever been is just anti-Israel. We have to protest no matter what. You're not freeing anybody. You're not ending the war. You're just going out and incessantly fucking always just complaining. That's all you do. These protesters just go out and complain and destroy and burn shit down. And no one's protesting when people are murdered on the other side, but they go out and protest over the smallest thing. They protest over peace, and it doesn't change, you know, the outcome. They're going to protest no matter what happens in the world. You know, even if they completely rebuild Gaza, they'd still be protesting. That's the really sad thing. It's not about the people of Gaza.
David, I really wish that we hadn't descended into an attack on the organisation or onto the BBC. I understand the point you're making, but you'll know that Sky News will reject that accusation. I'm sure the government will reject that accusation. I'm sure the BBC will as well.
You can't reject your own rhetoric, your own... Like, that's such a bull... Like, you can't make this argument when you're the one that's constantly, daily making anti-Semitic, like, videos and anti-Zionist videos and propaganda against Israel, and then you're just... we're just shocked when there's, like, some actual, like, shooter that goes out and actually acts on your words.
I do want to move on to the situation in Gaza, but just because of the comment there, the result of rhetoric, do you think that this individual felt like he had the backing of the UK government? I mean, David, you know David Menzer, you know the UK government, you know David Lammy personally. You don't seriously think, do you, that Sir Keir Starmer, David Lammy, Shabana Mahmood, anyone...
Because they don't complain about anything else besides Israel. And they're the problems half the time anyways. It's not Israel, it's the UK government. Like, holy... You know, it's always the problem, just deflecting to these people. Like, it's just blame the Jews.
In this government or the previous government, through their actions, would give any kind of a justification for this individual's acts?
Kamali, I'll tell you how British Jews feel, and I can also tell you how Israel feels. Israel feels that weakness on behalf of the government, giving in to terrorist demands, calling for a Palestinian state directly as a result of the October 7th massacre, which Hamas themselves thanked the British government for. Hamas
literally,
thanked
the Hamas terrorists thanked the British government. So what do you expect when there's terrorist actions in your own country? The terrorists are thanking you. They obviously feel invited. And you have this whole situation. I mean,
British government for that declaration. All of those actions mean that the terrorist, unfortunately, did his dastardly deed thinking, however misguided, thinking that he had the backing of the British government. Now, if you want to play a constructive...
You know, it's just ridiculous. This whole Palestinian state argument, they're not going to stop calling for a Palestinian state, bro. Like, even if October 7th just fucking happened again, they'd still be calling for it. Nothing ever changes. The solution is always the problem. But these people, they don't have solutions, and they only make problems.
...role in this conflict, then the only constructive role to play is to call on Hamas to release our hostages now. You don't need a deal to do that. That just proves you're a human being. And for Hamas to lay down their arms, that would bring an end to this conflict.
Because I've said it before,
in an instant.
You know, the hostages are keeping the war going. It's like more than anything. That's been the main factor here, is getting the hostages released. It's not like they're, you know, the hostages are supposed to actually, like, aren't they supposed to be like, you know, it's not a bargaining token if it's just prolonging the war, and it's the reason that, you know, obviously, and Israel deserves more sympathy for the hostages, because I hear it compared to, like, you know, criminals of war in Israel taken from Gaza, but they were captured in a war. They're foreign fighters. Like, obviously, the humane thing would be to imprison them and not just mass execute them. Like, this is the Geneva law. Like, I don't know how you're comparing that to, like, innocent civilians that were captured off the streets in their own country. It's just like the moral equivalencies just never end. It's just like a delusion that you could just compare anything. And I bet they're also the Holocaust deniers. Same token. It's like they'll deny or come to the most wild conclusions to justify their worldviews, even if they have to deny like reality. But
and again, I'm sure the government will reject that point. But David, let's move on then to the situation in Gaza. The Israeli Prime Minister overnight said all the hostages are close to being released. He said it hopes it will happen within the Feast of the Tabernacle. I understand that's up to the 13th of October. Bombing has continued overnight and this morning. Donald Trump had called for that to end. Will the bombing end?
Israel and the US are working side by side. You would have seen that partnership in play. I saw it with my own eyes at the White House just last week. The Prime Minister and the President are in extremely regular discussions, very regular contact, precisely because we want our hostages out straight away, all of them in one go, not in drips and drabs. 48 of them, unfortunately, are still there. 20 of them, we believe, are still alive. All of them need to be released. Now, when it comes to aspects of this deal, Israel will, of course, adhere to, and Israel is adhering to this deal. It is now all eyes on Hamas. Will this dastardly terrorist organization indeed go ahead and release our hostages? Will they indeed lay down their arms? Will they indeed provide some respite for their own people? Never mind the people of Israel, their own people who they have sacrificed in the most inhumane way.
You know, Hamas, they just are masters of propaganda. They literally went and stole the food from Gaza. They stole the food and the humanitarian aid. And I've even posted videos about it before. They robbed the people of Gaza at gunpoint. So I don't know why we're having sympathy for these people, or, you know, it's just terrorist. It's a terrorist organization. And no nation or country should be supporting these people. That's just a joke.
David Minson, will the bombing stop then?
Israel will act completely within the confines of this deal. Israel has always accepted every negotiation process. So when there is a call for there to be a cessation of fire, for there to stop to be...
well, Donald Trump said exactly that a couple of days ago, didn't he?
So again, you're taking the line of Hamas, Kamali, which you've done consistently. I'll give you that. You are consistent, Kamali.
That's not fair.
Yes, it is fair. Yes, it is fair. Yes, it is fair, Kamali. You have consistently taken the line of Hamas. Israel always.
In what regard have I taken the line of Hamas? I hope that you and I are going to have a constructive conversation today.
Yes, I'm happy to have a constructive.
Yeah, Hamas like propaganda is like insidious. Like it's taken over a lot of places. It's unwarranted. It's like they still have hostages. You can't have like civilian hostages be threatening their life and be getting sympathy from the world. I just don't know how these people go out, these jobless people go out and protest over these animals.
Don't accuse me of taking the line of a terror group.
Yes, well, that's exactly what you have done consistently. For the last 2 years,
Donald
you have
Trump
taken that
said
line.
Israel
Kamali,
should
this
stop
is
the
not our
bombing.
first rodeo. We've had many conversations, and I've heard you repeat back to me Hamas rhetoric again and again. You can shake
Donald
your hand
Trump's
if you want to.
rhetoric.
You, as a media, also bear some
The same token is like Hassan, bro. Like, all these people be like touting off like, you know, terrorist lines, you know, terrorist propaganda. Maybe not this man in particular, but they be like literally reciting terrorist propaganda half the time. Like, you have these people, they go on the air and they do this. It's like, if you're reciting all the lines, you're saying all the talking catchphrases out of Hamas's own mouth, and you just say that you don't support them, but you're speaking all their words as if they're your own. It's just ridiculous. It's like, just, you know, we see through it. I feel like most people see through the nonsense, the BS that people put up. So here we are.
Responsibility for the attacks on Jews.
I'm not going to allow you to do
UK.
that.
Yes,
I'm not
you
going to allow
can.
you to do that,
Yes,
David
yes,
Mensa. No,
yes,
we're
you can
not.
do what
Okay,
you
let's
want.
move. Let's get some specifics, can we? Because you're attacking me for some reason when I'm trying to get some answers from you as a spokesperson for the Israeli government. So, strikes have continued. You're not telling me when those strikes will stop. Currently, the Israeli military covers about 80% of the enclave. The idea, I think, is to withdraw to about 15%. Now, both sides seem to be waiting for the other side to do something. Hamas haven't announced that they will disarm. Israel hasn't fully said that it will withdraw. As the democracy in the situation...
Well, of course they're not going to announce that they're going to withdraw until Hamas announces they'll disarm. What kind of bullshit double standard is this? Like, that doesn't even make any sense.
Incumbent upon Israel to withdraw and allow international actors to come in and ensure that the terror group disarm.
Kamali, the first aspect of this deal is the release of our hostages. Everything follows from that fact. It's as simple as that. It isn't complicated. The first aspect of this deal, which is why Israel's people are behind it and why Israel's government is behind it, is the release of all of our hostages. Once that happens, then the subsequent aspects of this agreement will come into place. Israel will always agree to act within the confines of the agreement, as we always have. As you rightly said, we are a democracy, and Israel will always act within the parts of that agreement. Unfortunately, Hamas, through their actions, have proved again and again that they are the terrorist organization. They've been true to their name. Whether the BBC or indeed you, Sky, call them a terrorist organization, they are a terrorist organization. The best thing that could happen right now is for our hostages to be released as quickly, as soon as possible, 20 alive, unfortunately the dead, for a decent burial, to be returned home to Israel, and then every single other aspect of that 20-point plan can come into play.
Now, of course, there were huge protests yet again in Tel Aviv demanding the hostages be released. You'll know that Hamas on the other side are looking for Palestinian prisoners to be released. Are we clear as to who will be part of that?
See, this is, again, these people do this, and they go and they compare two things that aren't even equal, just to try and get more terrorist demands. These are extremist terrorist fighters that joined a terrorist organization and took up arms against innocent civilians and were captured in the process. These were people from a war zone that were captured under international law, and you're going to compare those to innocent civilians that were robbed out of their own home country and often brutalized unspeakably in horrifying ways. And you're going to compare that to people that are held in prison under Geneva law that were captured in a war legally. This is how the process... these are not two equals. You can't compare these two things. One is a completely justified act by the UN, and the other is a war crime.
Prisoners.
Kamali, I'm not going to discuss that, the details of that part of the deal. It is... let me give you, so I can answer all of your questions. Every single aspect of the deal that we've worked together with the Americans will be adhered to. We are talking about extremely painful exchanges. We're talking about the release of our innocent civilian hostages for murderers in our prisons. People that have committed murder, people that have been convicted of murder, or Hamas terrorists that we've captured during this conflict with the terrorists.
It's like, that is such a fact. Like, that is perfectly put. You can't compare innocent civilians to people that took up arms against civilians. That's just like the pot calling the kettle black. That's a complete inversion of
the truth
to even make that comparison, in my opinion. But, you know, it's just a hypocrisy. This, like, moral equivalence, this moral justification for terrorists. These people were captured as terrorists. Like, you can't even make this stuff up, I swear. But see, they just don't care. The fact is, they just don't care about the hostages. I mean, that's why they call for peace in Gaza. They don't care if they get released. These people don't care about Israel. They only care about Hamas. They only care about Palestine or whatever, as long as they have all these civilian hostages in captivity. They really don't demand their release. And you'll never hear it. That's never a talking point, but, you know, these people, this is a part, and this is a very crucial part of the deal, that if it doesn't get resolved, I don't see how there can be peace. These people just live in their own world.
Terrorist organization in Gaza. These are very, very difficult things for Israelis to handle, to deal with, to come to terms with. But we believe that a human life is the most important, is of course sacrosanct. So we want to bring all of our hostages home. And because of that fact, we are willing to release even murderers, people with blood on their hands, people that say that they wish to carry out attacks again and again and again.
Of course, women and children have also been held in Israeli jails as a result of this. Now, I just want to finish by asking you...
Kamali, perhaps you could share with me...
Do you see how this is? Do you see how this bullshit is? How these snakes are? They always have to fucking twist it around. You're talking about releasing these people. If there were women and children, they'd release the women and children. It's not like they want to release the murderers. You're just a snake, bro. You just have to twist it around for Hamas. Be their little propaganda fucking mouthpiece. Mouthpiece for Hamas. Like, it's always the same thing. It's always the same narrative. Same fucking, tote the same lines. We see you. You might as well be Hassan. Yeah, same old thing. Same old BS.
Kamali, perhaps you could share with these women and children you feel are in Israeli captivity. Israel is a democracy. When we take action.
When
there have been...
Why don't we prove those accusations? Like, you're just making some random fucking allegations. Like, what is this BS? What is this actual bullshit? Like,
terrorist attacks carried out by children. Yes, it is possible.
A
a 17-year-old is still considered a child, but still has carried out terrorist attacks. This is a democracy. So those throwaway remarks that we somehow lock up women and children, it's outrageous. It's a slur, and it's part of the reason that Israel and Jews have been demonized in the UK because of those slurs.
That's a fact.
Amazed that you're still suggesting that about me, David Menzer. But let me just ask you this final question.
100%.
An Israeli minister, Amichai Chikli, has invited Tommy Robinson to Israel, calling him a courageous leader. Why is Tommy Robinson, a man who's been convicted in this country for incitement to racism?
Like, bro, you literally just spouting off about Hamas propaganda, and like you just claim you're not a fucking supporter of Hamas. It's just a coincidence. He's spouting off like he's Hassan over here. It's like just coincidental, I guess. Like, Jesus, bro.
And terrorism.
Make that shit up. It's crazy.
Invited to Israel.
They shouldn't be journalists. Like,
well, whether Tommy Robinson comes to Israel or not, Tommy is part of British culture. I noted that he brought on the streets of the UK hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. So this is really a question for the UK. How it deals with
someone within your government's inviting him, calling him courageous.
Well, anyone that stands up against Islamism, we believe
deputies call him a thug.
Yeah, and I represent the state of Israel, and anyone that stands up to fight Islamism, whether on the streets of the UK or on the streets of Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, we consider to be worth talking to, because Islamism, unfortunately, cannot be appeased, as unfortunately the government of Keir Starmer are in the process of doing.
Yes, sir.
Islamism cannot be appeased. It must be stood
never
up
enough.
to.
Yeah.
Enough.
Like, that is 100%.
Thank you.
It's in their religion and their, like, belief system. Their core beliefs is like, you know, they weren't always like that. You know, they basically... Muslims founded the modern sciences, but it's also in their core teachings now, especially in more radical sects like jihad, that teach to go out and conquer and subjugate through propaganda and various different means, and to physically take territory. So these are the people that you're giving your land to and giving sympathy. But anyways, that'll do it for me there. And if you enjoyed this, leave a comment down below and give your thoughts. Let me know your opinions. I'll catch you all around the next one. Peace. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll catch you all around the next one. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll catch you all around the next one.